of a continent is beating with new vigor. This is Africa's moment. Free trade and digitization are transforming economies. Industry and entrepreneurship are uplifting communities. Africa is harnessing the sun, the wind, and the energy of innovation to grow sustainably. And its mineral riches are playing a crucial role in the transition to a cleaner world. Africa is no stranger to conflict or the ruinous rivalries of great powers. And its fragile land remains vulnerable to our changing climate. Yet Africa is building resilience and deciding its future with confidence. This is the time to believe, to invest, to inspire. Welcome to Bloomberg New Economy Gateway, Africa.
Please welcome founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies and three-term mayor of New York City, Michael R. Bloomberg.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Marrakech and to our first Bloomberg New Economy Gateway Africa. We have a great group assembled and lots to discuss. Over the next 2 days, you'll take part in conversations on the many challenges facing the planet: a slowing global economy, rising food and energy costs, tightening financial conditions, and an accelerating climate crisis. These changes affect every region and industry, and confronting them will require creativity and boldness, and public-private partnerships. That's what the Bloomberg New Economy is all about. Working together, we can drive innovation and create new jobs, strengthen international relationships, and build a more sustainable and equitable future. Africa plays a critical role in all of those areas. It's an economic engine and global trade gateway, and increasingly a key leader in our planet's fight against climate change. Morocco is at the center of it all. So let me extend my gratitude to His Majesty King Mohammed VI, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Investment, for bringing us to Morocco and for their support in making this event a success. I'm looking forward to the results. Now let's get started.
Please welcome the head of government of the Kingdom of Morocco, His Excellency Aziz Akhanouche.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour. Et je vous souhaite à toutes et à tous la bienvenue à Marrakech pour le Bloomberg New Economy Gateway Africa. Je félicite les organisateurs de la toute première édition de ce forum sur le continent africain qui permettra de mettre en lumière le potentiel considérable de l'Afrique. Mesdames et messieurs, Sa Majesté le roi Mohammed VI, que Dieu l'assiste, lors d'un discours prononcé au Forum économique maroco-ivoirien en 2014, affirmait que l'Afrique doit faire confiance à l'Afrique. L'Afrique doit se faire confiance parce que ses ressources naturelles sont considérables et sa jeune population talentueuse et qualifiée. L'Afrique, consciente aujourd'hui de son nouveau rôle, n'hésite pas à mettre en avant ses nombreux atouts pour se positionner sur les chaînes de valeur mondiales. Et loin de céder au protectionnisme, c'est en Afrique que la ZLECAf, l'une des plus grandes zones de libre-échange dans le monde, a vu le jour. Mesdames et messieurs, le Maroc qui a intensifié durant les 20 dernières années ses échanges avec 100 continents d'appartenance est aujourd'hui le premier investisseur africain en Afrique de l'Ouest et le deuxième sur le continent. Sous l'impulsion de Sa Majesté le roi Mohammed VI, que Dieu l'assiste, le royaume s'est imposé comme un acteur stratégique dans son environnement régional. Nous avons audacieusement réformé en profondeur nos institutions pour renforcer notre démocratie et l'état de droit. Nous avons bâti une économie diversifiée et solide, soutenue par des stratégies sectorielles, visionnaires, des infrastructures aux meilleurs standards internationaux et des industries performantes, nos secteurs financiers, agro-industriels, automobiles, aéronautiques, textiles, pharmaceutiques et bien d'autres font aujourd'hui figure de référence partout dans le monde, premier producteur d'énergie renouvelable en Afrique. Le Maroc se positionne également comme un acteur majeur de la transition énergétique à venir. Sous la conduite éclairée de Sa Majesté le roi Mohammed VI, le Maroc aborde une phase nouvelle de son développement. Celle-ci est caractérisée par l'édification d'un État social fondé sur la généralisation de la protection sociale à l'ensemble de la population, ainsi qu'une réforme profonde de nos systèmes éducatifs et sanitaires. Le Royaume s'est également doté d'une charte de l'investissement visant l'émergence d'une nouvelle génération d'entrepreneurs et d'investisseurs qui soutiendra l'expansion et l'implication du secteur privé. Enfin, fort de l'attractivité de son climat des affaires, le Maroc fait l'objet d'une large reconnaissance internationale par plusieurs organismes et agences internationales de notation, témoignant de sa résilience et sa stabilité politique, économique et sociale. Mesdames et messieurs, notre positionnement géographique, nos atouts énergétiques et nos infrastructures font de nous un partenaire idéal à l'échelle continentale et mondiale dans la recomposition des chaînes de valeur actuelles. Tout au long de son histoire, le Royaume du Maroc a joué le rôle de pont, et puis-je le dire, de gateway entre l'Afrique et l'Europe, établir des partenariats durables et fiables, et pour ainsi dire, inscrits dans l'ADN du Royaume du Maroc. L'événement auquel nous participons aujourd'hui porte donc bien son nom et la tenue de sa première édition au Maroc n'est pas fortuite. Je vous remercie et souhaite plein succès aux travaux de ce forum.
Please welcome to the stage Editorial Director of Bloomberg New Economy, Eric Schatzker.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to Bloomberg New Economy's Gateway Africa. I have to tell you, it is a thrill for me and for all of us at Bloomberg to see you here in Marrakech. I hope you have a chance to explore this beautiful ancient city and delight in Morocco's exceptional sights, its sounds, its tastes, and its cultural traditions. This is our first gateway in Africa, and the timing could not be more ideal. I want you to think for a moment about the forces that are transforming our economies, our societies, our world: climate change, technology, demographics, geopolitics, disease, and of course, war continues to rage in Ukraine, disrupting critical supplies and fueling inflation. These forces are all reshaping life and business here in Africa. There's no question this continent's future has never been brighter, yet that future remains far from certain. That is why we're here. We built this gateway around the twin themes of sustainability and resilience. Africa will need both to overcome the many challenges that lie in the years ahead. You'll see those themes reflected throughout our program. Above all, we're going to showcase Made in Africa solutions. I'm excited, and I'm excited for you. These next 2 days are going to be fun, they're going to be provocative, and at times they're going to be demanding. We want to earn every single ounce of your attention. But more than anything, we want you to have an experience to remember, learning from one another and building relationships to last. My colleagues and I are here to help. Don't hesitate to ask any one of us with a green stripe you'll see at the bottom of our badges. We'll do everything we can to make your experience a memorable one. Right now, I have a few important notes to share with you. Should you need it, there is closed captioning at either side of the plenary hall on the screens you'll see there and there. There's also simultaneous translation. There are headsets at your chairs. You'll find English on channel 1, Arabic on channel 2, and French on channel 3. As a courtesy to your speakers and to your fellow delegates, please silence your mobile phones and take any calls you receive outside the plenary hall. Also, please listen carefully to announcements. There may be some scheduling changes. We want to make sure that you're back in the plenary hall on time. I want you to share. I want you to share what you're learning. I want you to share who you're meeting. And I want you to share what a great experience you're having here at the New Economy Gateway Africa. There is a hashtag we use for this. It's hashtag New Economy Gateway. Please use it. Get out there on your preferred social platforms. And finally, we want to hear from all of you. This is a participatory event. There is a QR code you'll see right behind me there. Using that, you'll be able to submit questions, yes, to our moderators. You can submit questions to our moderators. Of course, it is up to them to decide which questions to use, but please feel free to submit questions. And I also want you to participate in live polling. So please scan that QR code now with your phones. And if for some reason it isn't working, see in a moment, if it isn't there yet, a URL which you can plug into your smartphone browser. It is BBG event. So bbgevent.app/BNE. I hope you all have that up. So to get things going, let's do a practice poll, everybody. The practice polls are polls in which there are no losers. I want to be clear. This is just for fun. Here in Morocco, this is the question, everybody. Here in Morocco, I being you, of course, am most entranced by the mountains, the coast, the food, or the historic cities. Make your choice. You'll see the results pop up on the app, on that little website I just directed you to. And when the final results are available, we'll do our best to show them to you here on the big screen. Now, without any further ado, it is time to get our program started. Please welcome to the stage Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area. He's going to have a conversation with my colleague, Bloomberg's David Malinga.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is a session about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It is a session about the history, the future, and the pride of Africa. And that's why we call it Pan-Africanism. And I want to start with a quote from one of the most celebrated Africans, Thomas Sankara, from the 1980s. He said, "Let's make the African market the market of Africans. Produce in Africa, transform in Africa, and consume in Africa. Let's produce what we need, and let's consume what we produce instead of importing." This is part of your mission at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Where are we in terms of implementing the agreement, in terms of cutting down the red tape, bringing down the borders, and seeing goods flowing through our borders seamlessly?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. If I may take a minute to contextualize what President Sankara was saying at that time, which was true then as it is today. of the character and the nature of Africa's economy, the African continent contributes to global GDP only 3.1%, 55 of us. Africa's contribution to global output and global trade is about 2%. If you consider a country like Singapore, whose contribution to global trade is at around 6%, 6.1%, clearly there's a deficit. And that deficit can be attributed to a number of factors: lack of industrial capacity, lack of economies of scale, smallness of national economies, market fragmentation, 42 currencies, not trading in a single African currency. So these are some of the constraints that have held back the productive capacity and competitiveness of our continent. In the wisdom of our heads of states, they've said this is not acceptable. We must do something about it. That is why 47 countries, as we speak, have ratified the agreement establishing the AfCFTA to establish a market of 1.3 billion people and to leverage on a combined GDP of 3.4 trillion United States dollars. The trading under the AfCFTA has started. We see goods being moved from Ghana to Cameroon, from Egypt to West Africa. Trading under the rules of the AfCFTA started last year. And we will continue to see more and more countries making use of the preferential trade rules of the AfCFTA. It's not going to happen overnight. We also have adopted a number of instruments, legal instruments that are critical to consolidating a single market. Protocol on investment for investment protection, protocol on competition policy, protocol on intellectual property rights, and by July, we will conclude a protocol on digital trade and a protocol on women and youth in trade to address this question of inclusivity in trade. So we are starting from, we are 60 years behind, 60, 70 years behind. So the continent has a lot of catching up to do, but I believe that we are on the right track. And
this trading you talk about, Mr. SG, that you're doing, it's, you know, the testing of the rails that you're really laying. Are there any immediate lessons you've learned from what has happened so far with, you know, this trade we've seen, tea from Kenya coming to Ghana? Are there any lessons you've learned so far in terms of addressing the challenges?
Yes, some of the lessons we sort of knew already. For example, a big challenge of interconnectivity in Africa, big challenge of trade supporting infrastructure to enable goods and services to seamlessly transit through borders, the need for, which is an absolute priority, the need for digitization of customs systems, which we've done at law. So we have a legal instrument that says all 47 of us must apply the same harmonized rules for transit, trade facilitation, and customs systems, but there's no interoperability. And this lack of interoperability of customs systems continues to be a constraint. So we are now considering and working with partners, how do we introduce a digital system for customs in Africa? The other exciting lesson which we've learned is that payments is at the heart of enhancing and boosting intra-Africa trade.
And I want to ask you about that because, I mean, this is a project, it's an initiative that Africans from all walks of life are proud of. But it's also an initiative that they all hope it works because the challenges are daunting. The currencies you speak about, for instance, the Kenyan president recently, Ruto, said he wants to see fewer and fewer trade transactions within Africa being settled in African currencies away from the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard these songs before. The BRICS happening in South Africa have talked about reducing the dollar dominance, but it's really not worked. How are you going to deal with this?
Well, there's, at least in my view, the president is correct, absolutely correct. In my view, there's a political economy dimension, which we are all aware of. Then there is the dimension that is the impact of the cost of currency convertibility, the impact on small, medium enterprises, the impact on young entrepreneurs who want to trade across borders. If you have to, which we've done, you quantify the cost of currency convertibility for trade in Africa, it comes to $5 billion annually. The African continent in the year 2019, combined, our transactions on SWIFT were $19.5 billion. $19.5 billion worth of transactions. So that is a cost to the competitiveness of Africa's economy. So with Afrexim Bank, we have introduced the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System to enable trade in local currency. If you consider the fact that the 42 currencies in Africa, sometimes you are 5-10 kilometers from the border, and if you want to trade with a person across the border, you have to buy a third currency to enable trade. So we want to eliminate this by introducing a digital tool, which we've done, to enable payments for trade in Africa. Now, the question of a common currency, I believe, will come further down the line, because, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's massive challenges on macroeconomic convergence that you have to align across the 42 currencies. And goodness knows from the experience of the European Union that that's not an easy task. But in the interim, how do we address this challenge? And I believe that digitization, digital tools present us with the opportunity to, at the very least, take a step forward to addressing this challenge of the cost.
What do you consider to be the biggest challenge to really, get us to a place where we say we are now moving, we're now building this biggest trading bloc in Africa? I mean, currency is just one of them, but there's several other challenges. Physical borders. I know up to now, there's some countries in Africa that don't have a physical border crossing. What do you consider to be the biggest challenge?
The infrastructure. Infrastructure that supports trade is the biggest challenge. Our senior brother, President Adesina of the AFDB, estimates the annual deficit, infrastructure deficit in Africa to be over $100 billion. But that over $100 billion is actually also an opportunity for investment. So it is a massive, significant challenge that we are confronting. And my fear is that we may succeed in establishing a very effective legal construct and a very effective legal foundation for trade liberalization and investment liberalization in Africa. But all of that will come to naught if the infrastructure deficit is not addressed, because you will need the goods to move somehow, and you will need to have good trade corridor connectivity, ports, trade corridors that connect countries that are landlocked to the ports. These are the challenges that we will have to contend with.
Yeah. And I just mentioned the quote from Thomas Sankara at the beginning. It's just part of the story. The other part is that you really also have to trade with the rest of the world, not just within Africa. How is that going, and where are the geopolitical tensions about decoupling, having a world where we have probably two trading blocs, one allied to China, one allied to the US? where does that leave Africa? One, and then two, I mean, do you have like real partner discussions with the rest of the world, with the European Union, with the US, the way Africa had with AGOA, anything but terms, etc.?
We have the trade pattern between the African continent and Europe, regrettably, has been that of Africa exporting unprocessed commodities. The AFCFTA seeks to change that. We have to export not only to Europe, but to the rest of the world, value-added, manufactured production. That's going to take time, but we have taken the first step.
The aspiration is for you to do what China did.
The aspiration is for us to move beyond what China did and to be even more globally competitive than China. And I'll explain why and why I believe it's possible. If you take any mineral on the continent, let's take pharmaceuticals. Africa in 2019 imported $17 billion worth of pharmaceuticals. Copper that is exported from some parts of the continent, processed elsewhere, and exported back to Africa as a wiring harness to make a vehicle. We want to change that pattern. The conversations that we're having with our partners are very, very constructive. We, for example, have an MOU, a working constructive relationship with the United States Trade Representative, with the US Chamber. We have a working relationship with the government of the UK, China. So we have a constructive dialogue with all our partners. What we have learned in the last 3 to 4 years, since we have been looking at the emergence of a new global architecture, the question is, how should Africa respond? And where should Africa position herself in this ever-changing, emerging global architecture, whether it's geopolitical considerations, geoeconomic, COVID-19, and the war Russia-Ukraine. These are two lessons that, in my view, underscore and make a very compelling case for why the African continent should accelerate intra-Africa trade, intra-Africa investment. We can't disconnect from the global economy, and we should not. But the over-reliance on global supply chains, Africa's over-reliance on global supply chains is not good for Africa. I think you heard the Prime Minister state that. So the AFCFTA must enable Africa to establish continental supply chains without disconnecting from the global economy, must enable Africa to establish productive capacity. In 2020, in April 2020, one man donated 7 million masks to an entire continent. Mm-hmm. Imagine that, because at that time, the global supply chains were so disrupted that Africa's capacity to produce or to import germ-killing products, tools that were required to fight the pandemic, were very, very limited. So we learned the lesson that we must accelerate self-sufficiency.
And during COVID, the other thing we really saw in Africa is the leapfrogging of payments, fintechs that you talked about.
Yes.
And you named several protocols. We don't have one on the digital economy yet, do we?
We will conclude the protocol on digital trade in July.
Okay.
That is a very important.
What is it going to do for us?
First of all, it establishes the right to market access in a digital economy. It establishes common disciplines across the 47 countries. It shall create a framework, a platform for payments. It shall create the ability of data to be moved across borders of the African continent. It really positions the African continent as a forward-looking new economic frontier where actually leapfrogging will be possible and should be possible because we don't have the legacy challenges as a continent. And so
I know we're running out of time, but I know you've been laying the rails, you started in the testing phase. When are we going to see the full commercial operations under the agreement fully take off?
It has, the operationalization has started, but it's a process. It's going to take a long time. Remember, the European Union was started 71, 72 years ago under the European Coal and Steel Pact, and it evolved into a single monetary union that we have today. So it takes time. Building a common market has challenges. It is daunting. It takes discipline. It takes focus. So it's going to take us
there's a lot of goodwill. You're doing a lot of hard work. I think you're one of the most troubled Africans within Africans, doing a lot of stuff. Do you think Thomas Sankara and the other ancestors will be proud of how far you've come?
I hope that they can say that at least the first step has been taken. We have started the journey. We're not there yet. We've taken the very first important step towards integrating the market in Africa and creating a single market for goods, services, for trade, for investment, predictability and certainty, for intra-Africa investment, and also for other investors coming in from Africa, outside of Africa, to invest in what I believe 20 to 30 years' time will probably be the most competitive region in the world.
Mr. Estiom Kelly, thank you so much. Good luck, and we wish you all the best. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Please welcome our panelists, Minister of State in charge of Economic Planning of the Republic of Rwanda, the Honorable Dr. Claudine Uwera, Senior Director and Chief Executive Officer of AFC Capital Partners at the Africa Finance Corporation, Ayaan Zainab Adam, Director General of the Société Générale des Travaux du Maroc, Hamza Kabbaj, and our moderator, Managing Editor of Africa of Bloomberg News, Arjit Ghosh.